Today we take a huge leap in algebra. We are going to learn something that you have not seen before. What we're going to do is we're still working with polynomials, but we are going to learn how to multiply a binomial times another binomial. So remember, a binomial means it's got two terms separated by addition or subtraction. So we are multiplying a two-term polynomial times a two-term polynomial. Now I'm going to show you three ways we can do this, kind of this stepping stone. So it's sort of the beginner way, the intermediate way, and then the advanced way. And the advanced way is the direction I really want you guys to work on going. So let's start with the beginner way, just so we have an idea of what's happening. Well, what we could do is we could take these binomials and we could put them into a table. So I'm going to take my first binomial, x minus 3, and I separate it into each of its parts. So I have x as one of my terms, and the minus 3 is really a negative 3 as my other. Then I take the second binomial and I separate it into its terms as well. So 4x will go here, and then that's a negative 5, so that goes there. And it creates 4 boxes for me. So what I do is I multiply each of those boxes. So first I'm going to do 4x times x. Well, remember, when we are multiplying those variables together, it's like having two exponents of 1. So I have an exponent of 1 with this variable and an exponent of 1 with that variable, because I have one of each of those variables. And so I really am going to do 4 times x 1 plus 1, therefore I get 4x squared. So now I'm done with multiplying those two terms. So now I'm going to do 4x times negative 3. Well, remember that negative 3 it's like a coefficient. It's really saying I have negative 3 groups of 4x. So I'm just going to multiply the 4 and the negative 3 together to get negative 12, and that x is just by itself, so that's negative 12x. So I'm done with the second set of terms. So now we're going to go to the next set of terms, and now I have to do negative 5 times x, which is negative 5x. And I'm going to do negative 5 times negative 3, which is 15. So now I've already multiplied each of those sets of terms. So now I need to pull it together. And I'm looking really kind of at those degree of terms so I know what to combine. Well, the only x squared I have is here, so that has to remain by itself. That's not going to go together with anything. But notice I have a negative 12x and a negative 5x. Those are similar terms. I combine those because those are the like terms. So when I combine those, first, if I can't see what I'm doing, since it's subtraction, and notice when I wrote this, I wrote it as negative 12x and negative 5x. It immediately made it a subtraction problem. So I can change that subtraction to plus the opposite if it helps me see it. And I can see I have two negatives that I can pull together. Therefore, I have negative 17x's. Now, I can't put these two together because they're not the same thing. This is an x squared and this is an x, two different degrees of terms. So we don't ever pull them together. Now, that 15 is just by itself. I don't have any other 15s there. So that can remain by itself. So in the end, I'm going to rewrite it, changing back that addition to subtraction, changing that negative to a positive. So my final answer would be 4x squared minus 17x plus 15. And when you're multiplying binomials by another binomial, your answer always comes out to be a trinomial. It's just one of those things that always happens. So that's the beginner method. Okay, once you understand that concept, we can then move to the intermediate method. Now, the intermediate method is using that distributive property. That is like the most important property, it seems like, in algebra. So what we do with that is I'm going to take that exact same binomial times binomial. I don't want to change it because I want to show you that each method works equally well. What I do with this one is I separate out that first binomial. And I'm going to put the x on this side and the negative 3 on that side. And then the second binomial, I have to multiply by both of those pieces. So that creates two distributive property problems, which are very simple for me to solve. So first I'm going to do x times 4x. Then I'm going to do x times negative 5. Now remember, if I have an x times an x, I have to use the exponents and add those together. So I have 4 by itself, x times x becomes x to the 1 plus 1, therefore I get 4x squared. I'm done with that. Then I do my x times my negative 5, which gives me negative 5x. Now I move on to the second distributive property. And notice I always add these together because I'm putting this together. If I separate it apart, I'm really adding them back together again. So now I have negative 3 times 4x, which I can see as negative 12x. And I have negative 3 times negative 5, which I can see as a positive 15. So you're just following the basic rules of distributive property. Now I've got to gather my like terms together. Nothing's going to go with that 4x squared. That's by itself. But I can see I can gather these two together and I get negative 17x. And then nothing is able to be combined with the 15, so I just leave it as 15. Once again, I don't want to leave it as plus and negative, so I change that plus back to minus, and I change that negative to a positive. Same answer. Both methods worked equally well. So we know the beginner method, we know the intermediate method. Now let's go to the method that really everyone uses if they understand how to multiply binomials by binomials. Everyone in the world knows the FOIL method. And FOIL can be separated into what it means. F stands for first, O stands for outside, I stands for inside, L stands for last. It's telling us the directions of how to multiply the terms within each of the binomials. So literally the first means I'm going to multiply the first two terms of each binomial. So I'm going to multiply my x times my 4x, and I can see it right there. And I kept the color the same so you can see that that was my first pair. Then I'm going to go to my outside pair. It means the outside of both of the binomials, the things that touch the ends. So I'm going to multiply my x times my negative 5, and you can see I can do it there. Then I'm going to go to my inside. So those are the numbers touching each other on the inside, but it's always in each of the binomial pairs. So I'm going to do negative 3 times 4x. And then I go to the last. So it's the last numbers that are in each of the binomials. So I'm going to do negative 3 times 5. Now, when I've done that, the FOIL method, I've multiplied all the pieces of the binomial together. So it's very similar to this table method, but now I just didn't draw the table to do it. So now I can go and combine everything. So we know that x times 4x is 4x squared. We know negative 5 times x is negative 5x. Negative 3 times 4x is negative 12x. And a negative 3 times a negative 5 is a positive 15. And anything I can combine together that are like terms, I have to combine those. So there's no like terms with the 4x squared. My like terms here can be combined because they both have x's. So I get a negative 17x, and there's nothing to combine with my 15, so I rewrite it. So you can see in the end, I get 4x squared minus 17x plus 15. All three answers completely identical. It's just the methods are kind of a stepping stone to really understanding how to multiply those binomials. Now, as you start off, you can use any of the methods, but ultimately, what is the method you want to learn? You want to learn the FOIL method. That is the international method that everyone uses. So work your way up, but definitely get to this method because it's going to pay off for you. Good luck. You'll do well.